Today is September 30th, 2005. We're at the JEA, and in front of us Mr. Phillip Scharf, who's a veteran of World War II in the Pacific. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Phillip, tell us something about your family before you entered service and the circumstances of that, if you would.
I was born and raised in New York City on the Lower East Side. Went through high school, and right out of high school, just a couple of months after, I was drafted into the Air Corps. I was transferred to Shepherd Field in Wichita Falls, Texas, for my basic training. And from there, I was stationed in Truex Field, Madison, Wisconsin, for radio training.
Radio training?
Radio, yeah. During my career there, the war in Europe started to get increasingly so I tried to volunteer for the infantry, but they wouldn't accept me because they had too much training in me in radio. But then when they started with the Belgian Bulge, they accepted my transfer, and I went into the infantry.
So you wanted to go ahead and get into the action.
Right. I was young and wanted to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sent for 6 weeks training to Camp Polk in Livingston, Louisiana. Unbelievable. I mean, one of the incidents there, one day I was sleeping in this one-man pup tent, and reveille sounded, and I never got out of my tent, and the sergeant came over, and he didn't know why I wasn't getting out of my tent, but I was laying there frozen because there was a snake lying next to me, and I couldn't get out of the tent. So he pulled out his .45 and shot the snake while I was laying in the pup tent. I passed out. But that was a wild incident. I did my...
You didn't see too many snakes in New York City, did you?
No, but I tell you what, then I was scheduled to go overseas to Europe, but I waited at Fort Meade, Maryland for a while, and then they decided that since I had some radio training from the Air Force, they needed me better in the Pacific, so they took away my winter clothes, gave me summer clothes, and sent me to California. In California, we boarded a transport in San Francisco to go overseas, and we joined a convoy with about 20 other ships going overseas, and our ship broke down. So the convoy left us. It took me 27 days to get from San Francisco to the Philippines. On board the ship, which was a very rough trip, I got sick one night, and I slept in a tall upper bank. We had 6 high where we slept. I was sleeping up there, and I got sick, and I laid down, and I never got out. For 3 days, I never got out of the bed, and they kept doing roll call and marking me AWOL.
AWOL on the ship.
Right. So until a sergeant found me, he dragged me out of there and fed me some food, and he says, "You know, you're going to go to court-martial." I went before the ship's captain, and he said, "Well," he says, "you really were an AWOL, but he says you're going to have to do some hard labor." So I did hard labor with the sailors in the ship, but that was the best thing that ever happened to me because I ate with the sailors instead of waiting on troop ships' lines, right? But we made it 27 days across. We landed at...
What would have been a typical crossing up to the Philippines during those days?
10 days.
Yeah, so it was really a crippled ship, just sort of all by itself probably.
We arrived in Leyte in the Philippines.
And that was about what time? What was the date approximately?
I arrived in Leyte on June 12th, 1945. I left San Francisco May 16th, so you can see it's like a long time. I was in Leyte for about a couple of weeks when they transferred and we put me in the headquarters company of the 34th Regiment. And I went to Mindanao in the Philippines. This was in early July. what they did have me, they said I was a radio man. They had me climbing coconut trees, stringing wire. Until, incidentally, there were only 2 Jewish men in the whole outfit.
Mhm.
It was me, and I didn't realize the other one was the mess sergeant. When he found out I was Jewish, he called me in and he says, "Kid, you're not climbing any more coconut trees. You go see the supply sergeant. You're going to be his new assistant." And I think he saved my life.
Those are pretty tall coconut trees, weren't they?
Yeah. So I went in and saw the supply sergeant, and he made me his assistant. And it was great. I repaired every rifle, every gun. I learned to be an armor artificer, which is a man that knows all the weapons.
Mm.
And I stayed in Mindanao for a while, and one day there was my sergeant went home because he had enough points, and he left. I was a T5, which is a corporal. One day they had an inspection there, and this general came in and said, and I reported as Sergeant Scharf, supply sergeant. He turned around and my commanding officer says, "Make that man a sergeant." He said, "He's doing the job, make him a sergeant." So I became a sergeant right then and there, right? Then in August, middle of August, the war in Japan ended. How I found out, we were called out of the woods back to the beach to sit around for rest. And we had like a little movie theater. I was sitting on a coconut tree. When they stopped the movie and announced the war was over.
Mm.
And Frank Sinatra got on singing Nancy with the laughing face. That became my favorite song.
Wow.
That's what he
Yeah,
sang.
yeah.
Right. So the war ended, and then we were scheduled to go to Japan. By this time, I was a staff sergeant already, you know what I mean? And we loaded on ships, and we landed in Matsuyama, Shikoku, Japan. We were probably the first troops into Japan. The 24th Infantry and the 1st Cavalry were the first troops into Japan. We landed in Japan, and we set up a base there. And they asked me if I would transfer from supply sergeant into S2 intelligence. I said, okay. I became the S2 sergeant. And
What would that mean to, say, a civilian? Explain that to us.
An S2 is someone who always interviews people, and gets research and everything. So one of my jobs was, when the war ended in Europe, there was a German ship in Japan with civilians and sailors and everything. And the war ended in Europe, they interned the ship in Japan because they couldn't go back. So when I became there, one of my jobs was once a week to go up in the mountains where they interned these sailors and things, and I had to take roll call to make sure none of them left. Once a week I'd go up there, and that was an interesting job.
So the German civilians and military
Right.
sailors
Right.
who were interned
In
at the end of the
Japan,
war in there.
because they couldn't go back. So
And they kept them up in the mountains, not on the ship.
no, they kept them up in like a resort up in the mountains.
Mm.
Right. I'd drive up there with a driver and armed guard and everything. We'd take roll call.
Well, these people had left Germany at the end of the war knowing it was going to end? Or?
No, it was probably during the war.
Yeah.
That ship was going to Germany because Germany was, and Japan were allies.
They were allies, right.
So they
These are probably pretty important people.
Right. Well, that was part of my job. The other job was to take a Jeep, a driver, an interpreter, and a small little attachment on the back of the Jeep and go up into the mountains of Japan. There were towns in the mountains of Japan that never knew a war started or ever ended. My job was to go into the area with the interpreter, get whoever's in charge, the police, and tell them that the war ended and they have to bring all the weapons back to me. And I would collect all weapons of all these little towns, bring them back, and I'd give them out as souvenirs to our people, our soldiers, you know what I mean? And at that time, we were able to ship them home. Later on, they didn't allow you to ship weapons. We had samurai swords, rifles, pistols, everything.
Now, the interpreter, was that a native of Japan, or is that
A Japanese.
Yeah.
A Japanese person who spoke English.
Yeah.
Right.
That person spoke excellent English as well as?
Excellent English.
Yeah.
Right. There were also some school children that we met that also spoke English very well.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the young schoolgirls was teaching me Japanese, and I learned how to sing a Japanese song. In fact, a few years ago, I was in New York, and I met this Japanese couple, and I said hello to them and talking to them, and I sang them a Japanese song, and they were in shock. They were in shock when
That was not something they expected,
no.
Now, the interpreter, was this a young man, the primary interpreter?
Right.
Had he been in the military?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Just a young guy.
And what was the relationship like with this person? How did that feel like?
Well, I guess it was pretty good because I have a picture of him and one of the police chiefs in one of the towns. I have a picture of him and I and my interpreter, my Jeep driver. We took a picture in the town.
Yeah. You're probably seeing a lot of people you were the first Caucasian a lot of people saw, I imagine, going up in the mountains.
That's right. Because these were, there were little towns there that really never came down. I mean, really. You're going up with a Jeep up into the mountains. It was pretty interesting. First of all, I didn't even know what to expect going up there.
Yeah. You know, were you going to go a hostile reception or welcome?
Well, knowing that they told us that these people never came down from the mountains, so we didn't know.
So these people weren't educated or sophisticated?
They had like a police chief there. So it was a town. It was pretty stable.
So what was it like to some people to have to explain to them there had been a war and then the war was over and that they were the defeated people?
They didn't realize it, but it meant nothing for them because they lived their own existence and they didn't care, really. But I found most of the people in Japan when I got there were pretty friendly. Very friendly. A lot of the civilians, we met a lot of school children and people like that, and it was a very interesting time.
Tell me again the area that you went to when you were doing occupation.
I was in Osaka, Japan. I was in Kobe. I went to visit Kyoto. Then, of course, the 24th Division was transferred. The entire division was transferred to the island of Kyushu, which is the southernmost island. And part of my job when they left was to stay behind and settle up some of the civilian contracts we had and everything. They left me with a driver, myself, and a Jeep, and a pass that allowed me to go wherever I wanted.
A civilian contract. This would be like some reconstruction?
No. In other words, when we formed a mess hall, we went into a place there where we got dishes for our mess hall, and we had to settle up with them, sign papers and everything, make sure they get paid for certain things. I stayed behind, and the outfit left, and I used to go to any outfit that was any Army base where I could go eat and everything. And then I boarded my Jeep onto a train, rode up with the engineer in the front, and we went through Hiroshima, and I had him stop. He stopped in Hiroshima, and we got off and wandered around. It was unbelievable. There was some walls standing, but there was nothing. I did see one of the famous things on a bridge where there was like a shadow of an imprint burned into the bridge. I remember standing there, right there. I took 2 pictures of that area, and then we left. The train went further on. We went down and we went to the island of Kyushu, where the 24th Infantry took over. And stayed there for a while, and just did paperwork.
Did you have much contact with civilians around the Nagasaki, Hiroshima area?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
There were not that many civilians around.
This was about how long after the bombing had taken place?
Well, this was
Month or two.
when I was leaving for Kyushu was in May. The bombing probably took place in June of 45.
So it was a year before.
Almost a year.
Yeah. So they had done some cleanup and so forth.
Yeah.
No concerns about a contamination from radioactive material, or they didn't have much concern
They
about
never
that?
even thought about that.
Yeah.
We just got off the train, wandered around, and
Mhm.
it was interesting. And of course, I also, we went to the other site, the Nagasaki site.
Mhm.
Well, now, you see, Hiroshima is a flat, so the devastation was magnificent. It was so spread out.
Mhm.
Now, Nagasaki was a valley, so the devastation was contained in a valley, so it didn't do as much damage.
Mhm.
Right. But it did change the outcome of the war.
Yeah.
You know.
What were some of your other duties during occupation that that might be of interest?
Well, most of the duties was going up into the hills with these towns and taking the roll call of these people. Other than that, after the war, S2 is paperwork, really. During the war, it's a little different if you're an S2.
I'm concerned about paperwork during that time. Yeah.
No, well, S2 is what they do is they send troops in at night on the thing to make maps and things, the surveillance and all.
Yeah,
But that's what they do during the war. But after the war, it's a little different.
Were there signs of destruction outside the cities, or was that countryside seemed to be pretty much untouched?
It was pretty much untouched. One of the towns, Kyoto, was never touched. That was the most famous shrines, Kyoto, and we never bombed that area. The shrines were intact and everything. I visited that quite often.
So there was a conscious effort to avoid some of those religious...
We absolutely did not bomb Kyoto, where all the shrines were, the most famous shrines. So we were very careful.
Yeah.
Because other places, had installations at Army or Navy installations at Bomber, but Kyoto had really only these temples and all. A lot of the areas, after a while, were off limits for soldiers. They try to keep us away from these places for a long time.
Were there any incidents that could be considered hostile incidents between the civilians and the occupying force?
I can't remember any hostile incidental. You know what I mean? Now we did take advantage of them a little. You know what I mean? When we first landed, occupied them, there was a beautiful opera house that they had, and I remember. It wasn't me, but I remember they took out the first 20 rows of seats from the opera house because we wanted to build a movie. So it was just...
Didn't have permission.
No, I mean, things like that. And we would be eating on beautiful china instead of ordinary dishes. I mean, we did do some of those things. But it was interesting. And toward the end, when I was ready to go home, I was very close. Well, this is a funny thing. I don't want my wife to remember, but I was dating a Japanese girl in Japan, and she had two sisters. One was a movie star, and another was just like her, right? My driver and I, we were dating two of them, and we didn't know the third sister was dating a one-star general from the Air Force. Now, we'd go out on dates. He would send his command car with the star would come to pick the two of us up, to pick us up for a date. And when in my outfit, they saw this command car come with a 1 star on it, pick me up, they used to think about, what is he doing? Is he a spy or something? So it was very funny. And the mess sergeant would make us a picnic lunch to take, you know. It was very interesting. She was
double dating with a general and
and three sisters. But it was a funny thing.
Yeah.
Also, I became very, very friendly with I can't remember his name, a 2-star general. And he pleaded with me to sign on and stay for an extra year. He wanted me to stay an extra year because his family was coming over, and he wanted me to meet his daughter. And I didn't want to stay anymore.
You've seen enough of that.
I went in at 18, 5 months, and I was over 20, so I said,
Yes.
and I have a picture of him. He came to the railroad station to say goodbye to me. I have a picture of him coming to the railroad station to say goodbye to me.
You ever have any contact with him or his family?
I never get time. I have a bunch of things I brought home. I brought home a lot of postcards from Japan. I had a little Japanese flag where everybody in my outfit I had signed the flag. That kind of thing. Then this school teacher that was teaching me Japanese, she painted 4 little pictures and just sent them to me with a letter in Japanese, which I had transcribed, right? Yeah. Told me that she misses me, and it was very interesting teaching me in an American Japanese, and she had these beautiful little paintings.
Something I imagine she never thought she would be doing during the course of the war.
Right. It's interesting, the things I did. I was very fortunate. I only saw part of the war for 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Really.
When you were in the Philippines, did you arrive there how long after it was emancipated?
No, I arrived in the Philippines in June, and the war ended in August. I was there for a few months.
Yeah. So was it in the process of being emancipated? The Japanese being, or had Japan?
No, there was
Philippines had completely been taken, or were they still having fighting on the island?
They still had fighting in the islands. Yeah. Now, because when we came out of the woods and along the beach where we set up for rest, we had to put security around the outside. We built 3-man foxholes. We had 2 cots and a machine gun, and 2 of us slept while one manned the machine gun around the entire perimeter.
So when you were climbing these palm trees to put up telephone wire, you were kind of exposed, I would imagine, weren't you?
Oh, yes. What did I know? What was I, 19 years old?
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
You ever had anybody, snipers, take pot shots at you up there, or nothing new of?
No, I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
I was far away enough.
Well, you had volunteered to try to get into the action, but you had all kinds of delays getting there, didn't you? With the
I
ship
sure
being
did. It
delayed.
took me first to get into the infantry, then going to Fort Meade, and then being scratched from the outfit went to Europe, and then they sent me to the Pacific. So it was a long, long
Some of those
delay.
guys might have got into some action before.
Yeah, well, yes. Some of
No,
them.
you don't know those things yet.
No.
So when you were in the Philippines, were you, I suppose, did you get to see much of the Philippines that had been retaken before you shipped off to Japan?
No, we were never in the towns.
Yeah.
We never got to town. One incident, we didn't get, our food supply was very good. I remember the mess sergeant going into town and buying a caribou, a water buffalo, and bringing it back and slaughtering it to make food.
Wow.
Yeah. One other incident, when I arrived in the Philippines, one of my first things, I had guard duty. I was guarding the commander of our outfit. I was 19. I was standing guard duty, and I must have fell asleep standing on guard duty, right? He tapped me on the shoulder, he said, "Son, you better stay awake." This was the commanding officer. He could have called Marshall. I was standing there sleeping.
Standing up sleeping, yeah.
Right. You recall these incidents. But it was a wonderful experience. I really, well, nothing happened to me, so it's a great experience.
Yeah.
I think right now, it would be a great experience if young kids just out of high school went into the service for a year or two and learned how to get along with the rest of the world. You meet different people from all over the country, right? They don't know what you are, and you don't know what they are. But when you have to fight alongside of them, I guess you learn very fast to be friendly. But you do learn things.
Learn to
It's a
cooperate.
great experience.
Yeah.
I probably, thinking about traveling from New York to Texas to Madison, Wisconsin, back to Louisiana, and back to Fort Meade, Maryland, then across to California, and then to Oakland. Must have hit a lot of states.
A lot of people thought your accent was a little different. You must have heard a lot of accents that
Yeah.
you thought was quite different.
Another incident happened to me in Madison, Wisconsin. When I arrived in Madison, Wisconsin, we used to get weekend passes for, we'd go to Milwaukee. The beer company is right there. They had free for all the service in the basement, an open bar for all service.
Did you experience anything being Jewish that made you feel being treated differently, or?
The only thing is that one of my close friends, he found out I was Jewish, he says, I'd let you go out with my sister. But he said,
That was just a compliment.
That was a great compliment.
Yeah.
That's some compliment, really.
That's
You know,
right. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Other than that, I guess I was a quiet guy, and so I never really had any serious problems. When you're in the minority, like the in the outfit, really,
Yeah.
and when the mess sergeant, he's the top
You
banana.
want to keep him happy, don't you?
He was from Davenport, Iowa. Davenport, Iowa, Jewish guy. I don't know how we got there.
A very small congregation out there, I imagine.
Right, yeah. So that was a great experience. It was great. I came back here. I have a picture of the troop ship I came back on.
Was that a Liberty ship, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people crowded on there, I bet.
USS Stetson Victory. Well, going over, I was a private, so I slept in a bunk up there. Coming back, I was a staff sergeant, so I had a little better
Yeah, a little cool there.
better quarters. Yeah.
I can imagine in the top bunk. Got dehydrated pretty quick.
I had to get cold-marked for the ship's mast. Here I am, and I did. What did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. It turned out good to get in the kitchen crew there.
With the sailors, down in the incinerator room, shoveling the garbage into the furnaces of the ship. That was the job.
Yeah.
It was the sailors. But
Some of those guys that were veterans of the North Atlantic crossings, I imagine. They had some harrowing experiences doing that.
Yeah, but I tell you what, our captain was a little nervous when the convoy left.
When you're a little slower, different out there all by yourself.
They can't hold up the convoy, so they left. From going overseas, it was unbelievable.
Talk about were there some moments where you felt very vulnerable or at risk, scary moments could have been combat, or an accident, an unfortunate events that come to mind?
No, I think I had the best of the world. I mean, when I went overseas, I was lucky when I started in Germany. So I guess I was sheltered pretty much than most other people. And then moving up the rank very fast with the position of authority, I mean, gave me an awful lot of power to do things. And also seeing the Toyota was never touched, which people don't realize that. It was never.
So you saw some beautiful countryside out there.
Never got to Tokyo. Never got up to
Some friendships that carried over the survival war, or is that hard to do?
Yes, I did. I was very friendly with a young Greek boy who's him and his brother owned the largest seafood house in Hyannis in Cape Cod. I kept in touch with him for a long, long time. And then one trip, we drove up to Hyannis. It happened to be when he was away in California, but his brother gave my wife a lobster about the size of this table. And in those days, I didn't eat seafood. So when I told him I'll take some scrambled eggs, I mean, he wanted to kill me. I never.
Turned out the best he had to offer.
Yeah. But Spiros Kerathinaceous from Hyannis.
Yeah. Now, what was communication like with family back home? Did you write letters, or you weren't married, so you?
I wasn't married. I constantly kept in touch, wrote letters and all that. My mother never wrote to me that my dog had died. She kept that from me until I came home. She didn't want me to get upset. The baby. I lived in New York. The war started. I was very young. We had a bunch of us. Those days, very thing. The newest things we used to have flags put up in the neighborhoods with stars of who went to the service and all. 13 or 14 years old, we would send off all the we'd have parades for them and all. You know, the war was an honorable thing. People were proud to go and fight for their country. It was unbelievable. Everybody was volunteering going. Everybody wanted to do their share.
They were pulling strings to get in.
That's
To
right.
pass
People
physical.
who were disabled, not quite disabled, but 4Fs and all, they try to lie to get in. Because really, it's amazing. Not the same. The spirit of the things for the country was unbelievable.
When you came back, how do you, of course it's hard to know how you would have been if you had not been with us, but what do you think your influence was? Traveling the world, seeing the devastation of war, and how that changed or altered your life in your life?
Well, it made me look differently at all types of people. You got to meet all types of people, all religions. Everybody. Differences. There were no differences. That also helped me go to college.
What was your career after? What studies and what have you done in life in terms of your career?
Well, I went to it was Bergen Junior College, but now it's fairly vacancy. I went there for 2.5 years, and I played basketball. And then I decided that my family needed me to work, so we just quit. Never finished, right? But I had 2 years of accounting and law. And, I went into the dental field, dental supplies. But during that time, I went back and became an optician, and never worked a day as an optician. Then when I came to Savannah, Larry Conant told me to become a real estate agent. I became a real estate agent. Never worked a day in that too, because I love the dental field.
Oh.
The people I met in the dental field all over the United States have been very friendly.
So that's what you...
I had an interesting life.
You retired from that now, or?
I retired from the dental field. I worked part-time.
And you lived in Savannah. How did you happen to get to Savannah from where you were in New York City?
Well, my business in New York, we sold out and went mail order, and I designed offices. I don't think we could sell a dental chair that weighs 3,000 pounds mail order. So I said, I got to find a mail. So a friend of mine offered me a job in Brantford, Connecticut. I didn't want to start the Jewish population in Brantford, Connecticut. So the other guy said, well, why don't you go down to Savannah? First he said, why don't you come with me to Philadelphia? I says, if I leave New York, I'm not coming to Philadelphia. So no, he says, I have a friend who I sell to in Savannah, Georgia. Go down there. I came down to Savannah, Georgia. And I happened to come here, and it was a holiday. I could not believe. I saw all these people walking in the street. And it was a Jewish holiday, and they were walking the synagogue. I said, where am I? I couldn't believe where I was.
Yeah.
And I met this guy, and I decided to go in with him. And we moved down, and my children were teenagers. My 2 daughters says, they don't have a baseball team. We can't move there. But they had most of their education already in New York. They were juniors in high school, so they came down here.
So you were about how old? Had no direct family. So your experiences in the military of meeting people, new people, different cultures, different lifestyles, even being Jewish, takes some changes getting down the south, I'm sure.
You have to learn to get along with people. No matter what. Very important. And that experience is everybody.
Well, let's, anything else on your...
No, I gave you the
full rundown.
chronicle of everything.
Well, let's look at some of your souvenirs and memorabilia and get that recorded on the tape too.
Okay.
Let's move over there.
Just put some up at the front of the camera so I can take a look at it, and we'll talk about each one and we'll put it up.
This is my original report for induction.
Let me put that on here. You can see it in the light better. Okay. And you kept that in pretty good shape, yeah.
I'm kept.
Yeah. All right.
This is my original pay record from
You kept that with you through the whole time, huh? Yeah. Okay.
This is an original 1941 showing the army, showing the, these are some of the pictures, which when I was in the Philippines. Right. There was a general coming to say goodbye to me.
Yeah?
When I was leaving Japan. Here's the town I went into with my interpreter and the guard, and the police chief, up in the mountains. That's me in Japan. There's the ship that I came home in from Japan. There's the two pictures of Hiroshima.
You took those with your own camera, huh?
Yeah, right. That was good. This is Eisenhower when he came to visit us in the war. I caught a picture.
Now that was in Japan, or was that where?
Japan.
Okay. I didn't know he made it over to the Pacific. Yeah. And there's the flag you were talking about, the
This
sign
is
by.
the flag that everybody in my outfit signed. These are some Japanese postcards. And this is the Japanese school teacher who painted these pictures.
Oh yeah, the one that was teaching you the language.
She taught me how to sing a song in Japanese. I can still sing it.
Yeah.
You want me to hear a Japanese song?
Sure.
Chi papa, Suzume no Dakkono sensei wa muchi o uchiri chicha papa. These are original from Japan fans. And this is the Japanese money. I got a whole box of this money.
Now, is this occupation money, or is this the Japanese money?
Japanese money,
Japanese money.
and some of it is military occupation money.
Yeah.
This one says Japanese government.
Okay.
And this was made for me in Japan. On one side it says Phil Scharf. On the other side it says Honshu, Japan. What these are is like, these were, women carry these in their obies for protection with the thing around the little swords. And these are some of the, this is the Asiatic Pacific with a 1 star and good conduct. And that's the 24th.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.